Good evening and welcome to the Bench Jeweler. Our website is mybenchjeweler.com. That's mybenchjeweler.com. On that website we carry a numerous amount of tools and equipment to clean your clocks at home professionally. And tonight we're going to go through a cable cleaning clock part 3. There's 2 videos out already on it on YouTube. Go to RSJ Gold and you'll find the videos there. Go to the video selection, and the last 2 or the last 3, one is how to put your studio together so that you can shoot better video. I hope. Yeah, this is brand new for us too. We just put a new studio post in, and all of our equipment's overhead now, so it's a lot easier for us to demonstrate without you getting in my hands in the way. So I got off track there, and I apologize. We're going to go through a couple 3 things before we get started on cleaning a cable clock, part 3. And there's a few things that I want to go through. Number 1, this is Red Dragon oil right here, and this is specially designed oil, and it is made for oiling clocks for sure. It's a quality synthetic, 100% synthetic, so this doesn't have regular oils of any kind or additives in it like you would get like 3-in-1 oils or motor oils, any of them that would have additives on them. We don't want additives because they can damage your plates. Turn them green on brass, and then you can eat through your lacquer on your plate. Your plates are lacquered and so forth. So Red Dragon oil is probably the finest oil that we've ever come across in the last 40 years that we've been doing clockwork. And I'm a 100% believer of it, and I sell it, and I think it's probably one of the best clock oils out there. Enough said. Now, for a year or 2, we also included in these kits that were what you see here now. We also included an escapement oil, which was we misunderstood how that worked. When we talked to the company, we understood it to be a thicker viscosity. And it really wasn't a thicker viscosity. What they did is they used a red mixture, and I believe it was an oil that was mixed in with this oil here, and it turned it red. And they thought that would be easier for you to see when you were putting the oil onto the teeth of the escape wheel. And we'll get into what an escape wheel is later. But that did not work very well, and we discontinued it, and then now I see they have discontinued the oil. So to oil the escape wheel, you use the same oil that you're going to oil the pivots with, and you'll get along just fine, and we're going to teach you how to do it right, and so you don't get in trouble with it. The escape wheel is a difficult piece to oil because it's on the inside of the clock up here, and it's a little difficult to get to. So enough said with that. So you get the oil, you get the long one here that's silver, that's a grease holder. You can grab the grease that you use to grease the cams and the strike and the hammers. And the other one is a custom designed oiler that is made especially for oiling clocks. I don't think there's anything out there on the market that was ever designed other than what we have to actually oil a clock. And they're just absolutely fantastic tools. When it comes to oiling clocks, they deliver the right amount of oil and give you a really professional job at home. So with that, you get a special design grease. It's called sticky grease, Red Dragon sticky grease. I don't know where they come up with these names, but I'm going to demonstrate it here just a little bit. What this oil does, what this grease does, is that you oil the cams, you oil the hammers, and you oil the strike hammer. And it's always the cams on the hammers, not the hammers themselves, but the cams that drive your hammers up and down. And this oil, this grease, I keep calling it oil, I'm sorry. This grease is designed to be very sticky. You can see how it grabs on there. And what it does is it stays put, and it doesn't liquefy over a period of time. You can use regular motor grease, but that's not it gets runny and it runs off your cams. This won't do that. This will stay pretty well where you put it. It's going to apply right there, and it'll stay right there. So that's why we use that grease. You can buy this in 3 different sizes. If you're doing a lot of clocks, you might want to buy an additional one. You can get it on our website, mybenchjeweler.com. Clock tools, go to products, clock tools, and it'll be in there. Then you also get a little clear canister like this here. Let me get that out of the way. And what you want to do is you want to pour just a little bit of your oil into this little canister. And the reason you do that is if you contaminate this oil, you're not contaminating the whole bottle. If you contaminate the bottle, you're going to be buying a new bottle, because it will ruin you. It'll gum up and ruin your clock. So you have to be real careful about contaminating your oils. And that's why we give you this little jar here. So if you are oiling it and you notice that it's getting little specks of dirt and stuff like that in it, well, that's contaminated. So when you're done oiling it, you throw that out, and it preserves the rest of your oil. So along with that, you get an oil extractor like this one here, and so I'm gonna put a little can here. Now this has got oil in it. Right there, you can see the oil. And this one here, I use for mineral spirits or alcohol to clean off your swabs. So that's what that's for. So this one here is a extraction. And what it does is, if you over oil your clock, you can kind of work around this, and it's got filaments on it, and it pulls that oil back off your clock plate, which is just wonderful. Then you dip it in alcohol like that, and you can clean it off. So you can reuse these sticks, but you get 4 of them with each kit. You get 4 cleaning swabs with each kit, and you get 2 larger cleaning swabs with each kit. And on the back side of these have all been sharpened. They're pointed, and that's designed to dig the grease and stuff out of the oil wells of your clock. So I think that's enough said on going back through it. We got a lot of people who didn't understand what was going on with the escape oil, and I'm trying to re-educate. And I'm sorry that we really thought that would be the cat's meow, and it just did not work. You couldn't see where you was oiling it, and the oil didn't do anything different than the regular oil. So why spend all the money? So we'll move on now. So let's get into how to clean your cable clock part 3. And quit jibber jabbering here. I want to get through this pretty reasonable, and you know, I try to keep these videos less than 20 minutes, and it's really hard to do. So now we have a new tool, new video camera setup that shoots everything straight down over to the top of it. So what I didn't realize is that right's left and left is right, as I see it. So if I get confused a little bit, I'm naming the parts so whether I have it on the right side or not, you'll figure it out, I think. So I'm really trying hard to get quality video for you so that you really understand how to clean these clocks, because you can get in a lot of trouble if you don't listen and you don't quite understand what's going on. So I'm here to help you. And if you do run into trouble, you know my email. So we do respond to the emails. We try to get to every one of them every day. So by the next day, you'll have everything you need to know, or within an hour or two of your questions. That's a promise that I try to make. My girls go through all the emails, every one of them, and not one person is left behind. So I kind of like the Marines. We don't leave them behind, and we're not going to leave you behind either. So I don't want you in trouble with these clocks when you start cleaning them. So this is going to be a cable clock cleaning. So the first thing I want to do is slide this back out of the way, and I got an example of a barrel. Now this will be the 3 key barrels at the very bottom of your clock. All right, as you face the clock, when it's in the case, you open the front door up and you look inside. If you go to the right side, which would be this one here, I think it's showing left now, but as you face your clock, the right side is going to be your chime. And the middle is going to be your time. And the left one is going to be your strike. Strikes on the hour. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. And the chimes chime every 15 minutes. Quarter hour, half hour, 3/4 hour, and then the hour. And the time, of course, is what the time does. It runs everything. So as we go, it's 6, 5, 6, and 3 intermediate gears. Now what does that mean? Okay, what it means is there are 6 gears on this one. There are 5 gears on the time, and 6 gears on the strike. So there's an intermediate wheel inside this case, and I'll show it to you. And that intermediate wheel has to also be oiled. So if there are 6 pivots on the top plate, there's 6 pivots on the back plate. So that would be 12 pivots to oil and 1 intermediate. 10 points of oil and 1 intermediate. 6 again and 1 intermediate. So that's 12, 13, 13, and 10, plus the intermediate, 11. Okay, if you're all confused, so am I. All right, that's how that works. There's 6 gears, 5 gears, 6 gears. All right, these are the barrels. And the barrels, as you can see, are grooved. Here, those are grooves. Your cables run on those grooves. And then there's usually there's either a metal or a plastic shield that goes halfway over this to keep those cables from overlapping each other. So if you can leave your clock your movement in the clock, and you can take the front dial off and you can get to the back, you can leave your clock bolted inside your case and don't take it out. If you cannot get to the back side, some of them do not have back opening doors. A lot of them do, but there are several that don't. And it's difficult to try and oil it from the side. Most clocks, grandfather clocks that are cable, have the front dial that actually comes off, and the 2 side panels on the sides of the clock come out, and a lot of them have the back door that comes off. If you have that set up, then you can leave your clock inside the case. I'm sorry, you leave the movement inside the clock case. You can clean them front and back, and you can oil them front and back. So if you can't get to it, then you're going to have to take the dial out, and then generally the movement comes out the front. But most of them, you'll find a wood frame around the front, 4 screws that hold the wood frame in. Undo that, and then that exposes the entire movement, the clock face. There are 4 tabs on the sides of that you remove, which is go right here. These little tabs, see those? I'm going to get my fingers out of the way, that way you can see them. Right here and right here. There's 2 on the bottom of the clock. You pop those loose like that and like that, and you can pull the whole dial out. Now you're exposing the whole front of it. But a lot of times if there isn't a back door, you can't get to the back plates, and that is critical. It is critical that you get to the back plates too. So if you have side panels, you can use a mirror and you can get to those gears and clean them, but it's very difficult, and you plan on spending about 2 hours cleaning the clock. That's what it takes us in a field, 2 hours. And a little bit longer if we bring them in and have to rebush them and all the heavy stuff. So let's get back out of that and let's get back to this. If you have to remove the clock movement, what I'm worried about is that the cables get tangled up in here and they get overlapped on each other. You know, you got a cable going all the way across and then it just crosses over one of them. Well, your clock won't run that way. It'll stop. And you'll wonder why. It'll run for a little while and you'll start it again and it'll run for 10 or 15 minutes and it'll stop. And that's because that cable is lapped over the top of the rest of the cables. And there's 2 ways to fix that. You can there's a latch that you can undo and pull the cables down. And there is you can monkey with it and hopefully let it unwind on its own by stopping and starting and stopping and starting until finally the cables straighten out. Once they straighten out, you can crank it up and have no problems. Let's move on. So if you get tangled, there is a ratchet gear right here. Let's see if we can get that. And if you can find that in your clock, you can push it down like this, and this will spin and you can unwind the cables. Now when you do that, don't leave the weights on the cables. It's back in your movement's back in the case, and you don't leave the weights on and try and let that down. You'll snap the cable and your weights will go flying down the base of your cabinet and bust up. Not a good deal. So I'm going to try and explain it now. You see, can't move it. But if I push this down, see, I can move it. So now you can untangle your cables and then crank it back up. All right, let's move on. In your clock movement, you will put oil right here. On the back side, you want oil right here. That's the 2 places to oil that. You put here's your grease. You put a little, see how much? I don't need much. See that? Put that right here where you see the ratchet. You see that little ratchet? Right there. You just, if you can get to that, you just put a little right there. If you can't get to it, you put a little bit right here, a little bit right here, and a little bit right here. That's enough. Forward on this goes around. Cleaning your clock cable. Now I've put grease on all of your. All right. On this one here, which if you're facing the front of your clock, is going to be the chime. Time. Strike. you can see the cables. You see the chime cables? You notice how nice and even those are all the way across. And there's a plastic shield on this that you probably can't tell, but there's a plastic shield that helps keep those in position. Now let's go all the way over here. You notice where the cables, the cables have separated. See there, right here, and there's 3 or 4 loops there that are open. Well, that's not going to be a problem because they're not overlapping. If they were overlapped, then you have a problem, especially if it's mounted it's still in your cabinet. Okay, so when you put this back together and you put your dials on and your weights, don't wind it all the way back up. Leave it right where it's at. If you started it about halfway down, the weights being halfway down, that's where you want to start the clock running. And let it go all the way down, and then on Sunday or so when it's all the way to the base, then you can start winding them back up. So don't wind them after you've cleaned them. Leave them wherever they're at. Don't mess with them. That helps you prevent that cable from overlapping and causing problems. All right. So now we're ready to start. First thing, watch these cables. If you have the movement out of the case and you set this down on those, and you will. You're going to kink one of these, and if you do, it'll break. And then it'll unravel, and then your weights will snap off of that. So what you're trying to do is not slide the cable of the clocks onto the movement onto the cables. Just work with it as best you can. You can usually get them like this here. See? Now they're free. So if you're working out of the case, you want to be real careful with these cables. They're a pain in the butt. Excuse me. All right, let's see if we can move on a little further now. Looking straight down. This is the escape wheel right here. You see it right there, and this is the fork, the pellet fork. Let's see if I can get to the back side. See the pellet fork moving? And it's running those little gears, the little teeth. Right there. See them? Those are what you want to oil with clock oil. And you want to just, if you can see the oil on it, you put too much. That's just the way it is. And I'm going to show you how to do all of this. But now, there's a dozen clock cleanings on my YouTube channel, RHJ Gold, and so I'm not going to go through the whole procedure on this, but I am going to go through all the fine points on a cable clock, and that way you'll understand what's going on when you get ready to do yours. The chain grandfather clocks are all done the same way. Everything's the same, except that you're not fighting the cables, you have chains. And the chains, you can just undo them and take them off, put them back on, and you won't have a problem at all. And they don't kink or bend or anything like that. Alright, now if you have to remove the case, the clock from the case, this is the leader back here, and I'm going to turn this clock around. Alright, this is the leader. And some of these leaders have a piece on the back side. So remember when you take these off, which way this has to go back on. If it doesn't have that on there, then you won't, and I don't have one to show you, or otherwise I would. Now, here's how this is done. You get your big fingers in here, and you undo this little okay, this is a guard which keeps you from bending that suspension spring, and it can come all the way back. All right, and then there's a screw. Right here. Unscrew that little screw. All right. Get yourself a little tray. And it comes right out just like that. Now the hook on this, see here? This is how it goes back in. Just like that. Goes right back in. And then this little fellow right here, which is your verge, has to slip in through here. Just like that. And you put it back on exactly how you took it off. Right, that's the leader this is the leader that we're looking at right here. That holds your pendulum. You did take the pendulum off before you took it out of the case, I hope. I got to tell you. Alright. Lord. Now, the reason you take that leader off of here is so you don't bend that suspension spring, which is right here. You don't want to bend this little piece in here and kink that. Clock won't run very well if you do. So that's why you take it off if you're working with the clock out of the movement. The case, if you're working with the movement out of the case. All right, then don't lose those screws that you took off. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to look at this back side. I'm going to be very careful now. Look, can't just drag them around the front either because you'll bend something up there too. So you got to be a little careful with these. Use a little bit of common gentleness, something like that. All right. So here's your barrels right here, right here, right here. And you're going to take your little swabs with the pointed stick end and you're going to clean those out of there, just like that. And you do all three of them. And these little snap rings will spin right around with you so you can clean them out. Okay, and then here's your first, your drive gear, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. All right, and you'll clean all those pivots, and then you'll oil all of those. I'm going to show you how to do one, and then you can figure it out the rest of the way. So let's set this back a little bit. Let's get our oil. Now this is why these are clock oilers, because they are made to do exactly what I'm going to show you. So you just, after everything's cleaned, you just touch the let me see if I can get this up here a little closer. You don't need very much oil in your cap here, in your little canister. You just touch the oil. And you can see that oil on there. See that oil? Isn't that nice? And you just, let's move it. All right, now you know how I did that. So we'll move this back. And I don't know that you can see that, but it drained that oil right off the top. And then you just go to the next. There's still a little bit on here. Okay, now you can see that I have just a little dab that actually right here. And that's the beauty of these little fellows. Here's a little bit of alcohol on the cap. I'm not going to dip it in there. I'm just going to take that. Now I'm going to use a little bit of alcohol just on the outside. And that takes care of that problem, and now you got the oil right where you want it, and it's not out here on your plate. That's the beauty of these little fellas right here. Right here. It's so hard. Right here. You just touch on the outside. Now you understand how to do that. I hope. So you dip your oil, and you oil the big one here. Okay, let's see. So you start with the bottom ones, you oil the big one here, you oil the middle one, and you oil the left one. Then you go here and you oil this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then those are done. The same in the middle. You oil the big one right here. Then you oil this one, and a little dab of oil on this one. If you can't see those, you can see that all these are little wells. See the little wells? So you just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I didn't realize that the set of hammers were in the way. So let's go back in here and let's move this just a bit forward carefully. And once again, you just ease your oiling tool into your oil. And we'll go with this one here because we can see it. Okay, it just flows right in there. Now, purposely, I loaded this tool with a little bit too much oil, the oiler. I dipped it in as far as I could. You can see the amount of oil, which you see all that oil, and that's way too much. So I just have a little rag down here below my bench where you can't see it. So what we're doing is purposely I put a little bit too much oil on this, so you can see a little bit of oil right there. And what we use is a little bit of alcohol, or in your case you'll use the mineral spirits because that works equally as well. And you just dip it in here with your blue tool, and you pick up that oil all the way around it. You can use a little paper towel. I just happen to have a rag handy, but now that oil is still inside that well there, and that's what we want. And we got rid of all the oil around the outside plate, because what happens is that oil just kind of makes its own little channel and drips right down your plate, and over time that'll collect a bunch of dirt and dust, and it'll capsulate all the way back up to your well, and then you'll have a black grease sludge in your. So you just touch plenty of oil on that. There it is. It fed it, sucked it right in, and you notice there's no oil outside of the well. And that's what's so critical on these. So you want to make sure that you oil all of them up. There's 6 on each side, plus there's going to be an intermediate well inside here, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Now, when we get over to this part here, you can see this is pretty dusty yet. Now, I'm going to clean this differently, but for you guys, this will work just absolutely fine. You can, in fact, you can use a little artist paintbrush if you want, and you can clean off all the dust around your deal here. And you should. You want these things spotless if you can get them that way. So the next thing we want to look at here is this gear right here. This is your Chime drive gear, and what this does is it runs that butterfly up there. You can see the gears moving just a slight bit. Now you don't want to unloosen this, because this wheel does all of your timing. This is what makes it strike on the quarter hour, the half, the 3/4, and the hour. Or it makes it chime. So don't undo this and pull it off to get to that shaft down here. You can easily get to that shaft with these oilers that I made you. And you can wipe up any oil if you have to. Let's see if we can. I think you can see me. All right, not in the well, but out on the plates. Okay, so if we got that one done, now there's a couple things we need to watch for back here on this. And I'm going to go ahead and come back out here a little bit. All right. We have this fellow right here. You can see this. This is your chime board. And it's got a bunch of pegs on it, little sharp pegs. All right. These hammers are lifted by these little pegs in here. And you'll see them when you get to your clock. And these lift up on those pegs. These lift up. So you got to get grease down in between those pegs, right in here. Let's see. Once again, this is really hard to get to. But well, let's go back here, finish this. First of all, you want to oil this shaft right here. So you want to lift it out just a little bit. And you want to put a little bit of oil right on the shaft, just right here. All right, now, prime example, just a bit too much around the outside. Now that's what you use these big blobbers for. Now you want to put on the inside where is your you want to put a little bit of oil you'll see a spring in there. You'll put a little dab of oil right here and right up here on this. So you'll get oil right, you put a little oil right here, oil point there and an oil point right here. Now you'll do that once again on the front side on that same shaft right here. All right, now let's go back. Well, let me explain this a little bit. There's a little stair. You can see them right here. Let's see if I can. One right there. This right here, here, right there. You take and put a little grease. That's almost a little too much, but you come right in here and you get one, you can get two, you can get three of those. Now, you'll see there's a little step in there, just looks like a little shelf. And that's where you're putting this grease, it's right on that little deal. So when these pegs, when all these little pegs go around and hit those hammers, they'll all be greased. So that's where it's very important to get that grease. All right, that takes care of the back side. Other than on you follow the 5 well oils on your time side here. Alright, now let's go to the front side. It is nearly impossible to get oil into these shafts without taking these apart. If you take them apart, these are your spider gears, which are the stops on your crank. So when you start cranking this up, it has a certain little area there and it stops, and I want to keep that grease away from that. It wants to stop the winding of your cable so that you don't wind those weights up too far up against your stops. And it's designed to stop when you get so far. See, this one won't go any further than that because the cable's wound all the way up. Now, tricky part of this is that you can try and oil it from the inside down here, but that's hard to do. Or you can take a marking tool. This is just a little Sharpie, and you come in here and you mark this, any tooth that directly follows the next. So now you can see that I've marked your gears. And most of these grandfather clocks that have cables will have this two gears here that wind into each other and stop. Now let's see if I can get this tuned in a little closer. You can see where I've marked them now. Right here, and right here. Alright, now you can take a screwdriver, small one. This isn't small, but it'll work. And take your guard off. Okay. Now I use just any pair of pliers. You know, your wife's eyebrow pluckers will work. That's kind of funny. Whatever. So now we can take this guard off. We are not going to move these gears very far. We're just going to move the one on the crankshaft. We're going to move him up. We're not even going to take him out. Now I can get in there with my oil. Well, first of all, let's not jump ahead. A little bit of mineral spirits, and let's get this cleaned out. See how fast those get dirty? That's all that grease that's been building up in your clock for years. Alright, now we can take our oil, and you can use a fair amount, and it goes right in there and sucks all the way around. Okay, make sure, now since you see, let me get my fingers out of there. Oh, scared to death, so they'll give me hell for that. Let's see if we can get this down a little closer. Alright, now we're going to lift this back up a little bit, and I want to line that gear back up with those two marks. There's the mark, and there's the mark. Put the guard back on. Screwdriver. Your wife's eyebrow pluckers. They'll work, believe me. Alright, you see how I did that? There's the screw, and I tightened it back up. The two marks are right where they want to be, and you won't change the crank so that it doesn't crank in the right spot. Otherwise, if these get turned, it may not come down far enough. Your weight may stop halfway down because, as far as this concern is it's locked up. So these are just a safety measure in order to keep your weights locked up at the right height. And then it winds all the way down, and you can wind them all the way back up, and stops exactly at the same place every time. And it's real important not to get those off. If you get one of those off, your clock will not run all the way down. It will stop and lock up. And then you'll play heck for trying to figure out how to do it. So if you are brave enough to take these guards off, do it the way I just showed you, so that you got marks on both sides, and you know exactly where that, you see it's not going to go anywhere. It's all the way totally wound. Okay, that's kind of the next. All right. We'll start over here. This is your rack. You want to put a piece of oil there, put a drop of oil right here, and then you'll oil 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 of them. And you'll do the same 5 up on the this side, and you can get your, you might not be able to get your oil in here, so you'll have to do it carefully from the inside, and you go right down in here. And, oops, and oil your front shaft right here. That's this shaft right here. You're looking for it. You're going to hold it on the inside. Now, they make a little bottle like this here. I sell these empty, so you can pour a little bit of your regular clock oil into these bottles. And you can order these online. I carry them. And you can order them with a long 4-inch needle. If you can't get into your center shaft and oil it, then you'll have to go with one of these. Most of the time, what I've showed you with this, you can get every pivot and all the shafts. You won't have a problem there. You don't have to oil inside of this one here. And you'll oil this one, this one, this one. There'll be 6 oil points on this here, and you just look for them. 5 on the middle, 6 on the outside. Now, last part of this here is you want to put grease I'm just showing you where it does it. You want to put a little there's just a little bit right here and right there. You're going to see a little cam. See this? See how that grease stays in there? It's really got a neat bi-substance in there that makes this congeal and it doesn't run off. Okay? There's going to be a little lever right here. See where I'm oiling that. Put a little grease in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's a little lever right here. Put a little grease right there. And you grease the hammers. Now this is your chime board lever that turns the different chimes on. You don't need to oil that. You can put a drop of oil on your minute gear right here. This one here. sure that you put just a little dab of oil right there on that escape wheel. Alright. You can see that I've already greased it. And I'm going to move it so you can see the hammer inside. What you're looking for is this fella right here. I'm going to use my little pointer. There's a little shaft right here. See it? You want to put a little grease on that. That runs a star gear, which lifts these hammers up and down. Now, this here is the intermediate gear, which is what I was talking to you about. See it? And you'll put a drop of oil right there. There's one in the middle gear on the very bottom, which is hard to see, but it's there. And you'll have another one right there. And you put a little oil in those. Those are the intermittent gears. They drive 2 gears. And that does it. So you don't want to take the, see how those cables get mixed up really easy? Okay, you don't want to take this rack off to oil it. There's a little snap ring right here. And if you lose that, you're going to be in a world of hurt, because you ain't going to buy one at the hardware store. So just put a little oil on your oiler. Just drop it right in here. All right, now you want to then you want to maybe put another little drop. There it goes. Now you can actually see it wiggling around in there. You want to do the same here. Put a little drop of oil right in here. And no grease on the cam, on the rack. Leave this dry. Leave this dry. No grease there. The only place you put grease is right here and right here. So you can see the little bottle of grease that I send you would do 100 clocks. So, that's why you just get a scoop. You don't get any more than that. That stuff is expensive. It's over $2,000 a barrel. Okay, let's see what else we do. We got all this oil now. We've got everything done. And we're ready to probably put this back in the clock the same way you took it out. If you can leave it inside the case, you're better off. Works a lot easier that way. This is your rack, and this is called your snail. See if I can get my little fingers out of there again. This is your rack. This is what counts the strikes, all the way up to 12. And as this hour wheel goes around, it won't, see, what will that drop? Let's see. There we go. See how that dropped down there? Then as this turns around, he just keeps dropping down the shelf, down the snail. And that's what gives you the hours. And that's really critical that you don't oil or grease. I mean, not oil. No, don't grease these. Those you need to let run dry. Don't grease them at all. I think that about concludes the tips that I can give you on oiling your grandfather clock cable. And it's really not any harder than any of the other ones. This is where your dial goes back in up here and here, and there's one right on the side over here. And there's one on the other side. There you go. There's one right here. You'll have 4 of these, or you'll have 4 little tapered pins that you'll have to come in here on the dial and pull them out. And some of them have pins on them, and most of them have these little clamps that open up and let your dial come loose. You'll have to have another person helping you. Don't try and attempt a clock with weights inside the cabinet that are all the way up, because it's going to be way too heavy. Try and get your clock to run down at least halfway so your weights aren't clear up to the top, because these grandfather clocks are top heavy. Those weights down about halfway, or let your clock run down about halfway, and before you start oiling and cleaning it. So you absolutely have to have 2 people. You're scared to death if you don't. You'll tip that clock over, then you won't have a clock. So 100% make sure you got somebody in the front helping you with that clock, holding it while you're working on the sides and so forth. Then don't wind the clock weights back up. I think I made that clear. If they're halfway down and you clean the clock inside the case, then you get everything back together. Just go ahead and let it run on down. That way your cables can be wound all the way back up without them being overlapping each other. Very important little trick. When we go out on the road to clean these in-house, if they're cleanable in-house, Al generally has them let the clock run about 3 or 4 days so that the weights are about the middle. And then he'll come in and service the clock with those weights about halfway down. And when he's done with the service of it, he instructs the customer to go ahead and just let them run all the way down to the bottom, or another 3 days. So you'll have about 6 or 7 days running time, and then you can wind them back up, and your cables will be nice and clean and all the way up to the top. Don't try and clean these, by the way. Leave them alone. So, and you don't need to oil your pulleys. Leave those clean and leave them dry too. So, mineral spirits, alcohol, Red Dragon clock oil. There's lots of tools on the mybenchjeweler.com that you can order extra when you order these kits. The squeeze bottles, you can get these empty, these little squeeze bottles. Like this one here, and you can get 2 tips. You can order the 4-inch tip, along with the inch tip, and that's good for getting inside of these. So the last thing I'm going to show you now, most critical part of the whole clock, is the escape wheel. And it's going to be probably very difficult to get to it. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this, and what it does is it lets these gears, this escape wheel, move. So when you touch that, you just a little sliver of oil on the very tip. Let's see. You just dip this in at the very tip, right there. Just the tip. And let's see if we can get so you can see the tooth. You oil every third tooth or so. You don't really need to oil very many of them, Just get about a half a dozen of them. There's one. There's two. There's three. Now, I still have enough oil sitting on here. There's four. There's five. And I'll need just a little bit of oil. There's 6, 7, 8. Plenty. All right. This baby will run just fine. Put your leader back on. Put your suspension spring back on. Put her back in the clock. Bolt her back down, and you're ready to rock. That's just about all I can tell you on these. They are a 2-hour cleaning job. Don't start your deal at middle of the evening at 8 o'clock and think you're going to get done. It takes quite a while to get through all the cleaning, and that cleaning is critical. Don't just buy oil and stick oil in those pivots and think that you've cleaned your clock. It's kind of the same thing as leaving oil filter on your car and changing the oil. What good is that? So make sure that you get the little kits, and you can get them at mybenchjeweler.com, and the kits come complete. Everything you absolutely need, other than I don't provide these bottles because most of the time you don't need them, especially if you're just doing mantle clocks. You can get into those pretty easy, or wall clocks, or cuckoo clocks. So. And we do make a special oiler for cuckoo clocks because the pivots are so small. Don't lose your hand nut either. So be sure to be careful when you put your dial back on, that this moon gear dial, if you have a moon dial, that matches up with your dial, so that you don't bend one of the gears on the dial, because those are awful thin. So that should just be about everything. If you have any questions, you know where to go. Go to the My Bench Jeweler cable clock cleaning, and leave a message there, and it'll get to my email, and I'll get right back to you. So we thank you for watching our videos, and this is the end of part 3, how to oil your grandfather clock. And like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call there on the, you can text me on the emails, and I'll get right back to you.